My next guest was basically the first ETSU coach that I ever knew to a certain extent. Now, I knew John Robert Bell. I met him later on and, opened up a media guide and found out the names of Star Wood or Gene McMurray or somebody like that. But in terms of when moving to Johnson City, Mike Ayers was the coach of the East Tennessee State Buccaneers. And it looked like he had something going. He turned a winless team into a 6-5 team, into a team that beat NC State, recruited Thane Gash, who had become a defensive back for the Cleveland Browns and some other teams, and then built that team into a powerhouse. You know what goes on Saturday? Wofford and ETSU playing basically, well, it's not official, but the winner of that game looks like they'll probably win. When you look at this ETSU Wofford, your first year out of it, are you kind of surprised that your two former teams are now playing in a game this big?
Well, I definitely had a better understanding about, but we were fortunate enough to come out with a win. We understood the type of kids they were recruiting, the type of athletes, and we knew that very shortly they would be a team to reckon with. They came up and had a coaching change. Coach Thorbush stepped down, and they get a new coach in, and they have done a tremendous job of winning the close ones. In 2017, they remind me a lot of the teams that we had those 2 years that went to the playoffs and won the championship and all that. And they kept winning the close ones, and that's what we did.
Mm-hmm.
They're a team, quite frankly, that I feel on them, and they play hard. They play really hard, and that's the first step, the biggest step.
Mm-hmm.
Trying to develop a program and to develop a winning tradition and a championship type of team is the ability to go out there, no matter what. They've got that kind of team. I know from my standpoint who's got the best kicker, and matter of fact, both teams have excited about the opportunity to.
Week afterwards, because I know Wofford is going to name their field, not the stadium, but the field after you on the 27th and such. That can you put into words what that means to you?
Well, anything that we accomplish at Wofford, quite frankly, we were fortunate enough to have outstanding coaches, assistant coaches that believed in the process and had the same vision that we had as far as becoming a championship caliber team when a lot of people could help us be successful as well. We had one of the best field guys in America that took care of our fields, practice fields, game fields, and I attribute everybody from top to bottom. They all told them the dollars for that. I'd ready to give them the scholarships.
Mm-hmm.
Their mindset, and who knows? It's just crazy. It's been a dream opportunity. As volatile as football is today, as far as jobs, years to start out as an NAIA program, go to Division II, and then go to Division I has been just I think a great story for championship program, and all the success that we had. Again, it's about the players and it's about the coaches and all the people that are behind the scenes, trainers, equipment guys, you name it.
Well, you're including everyone. I'm waiting to hear about the ticket takers here. But Mike Ayers, I do. You know this question's coming up, and it's something that every ETSU fan has discussed a bit. And it was your decision to leave ETSU. And I know that your last team, you lost your last 2 games, including to VMI, and that made it 5-6 instead of a second consecutive winning record. But there was the victory against NC State. There was Thangett, Billy Taylor, Danny Cox. There were some good players that were on that team, and it looked like things were going in the right direction. Now, I know you had a little bit of background at Wofford, but my goodness, it's a Division II school against the Southern Conference. Why in the world would someone do that? That sounds like leaving on their own accord a FBS program for an FCS program. Why did you leave ETSU for a smaller program? I know you said, hey, it was the right thing to do for your family and all that when we talked earlier, but why was it the better thing to do for your family? What was the intrigue to go coach D2 in the Wofford Terriers?
Well, I think the big thing that you have a place where they had given me a chance at getting a job.
Mm-hmm.
I've been an assistant coach at Richmond. The head coach got fired, and I was out looking for a job. And when you have house payments and you've been let go, it is not a very happy time. And Wofford, Coach Buddy Sasser, gave me an opportunity to be my credit tool. And when Wofford fell on hard times and they gave me a call, it was one of those things. Well, quite frankly, I was not looking for another job. I was excited about ETSU, about the kids that we were going with the program. But I drove down, I met with the athletic director, and I met with Joe, the president, and Dr. Lassane, and I were good friends, and I just had a conversation with Danny Morrison the week before, and then it was Danny and Dr. Lassane. And when Dr. Lassane says, Mike, we need you, I just reflected back when I needed a job,
Mm-hmm.
I needed one, and that's the main driver in taking that. I knew that the paycheck wasn't as good, but at the same check, if I could provide for my family, that was good enough. And they afforded me a chance to do that when I came back as the head coach as well.
Well, it sounds like loyalty, okay, and I love loyalty, but it also sounds a little bit like you had a little more job security offered.
Well, I can't say that to be a fact. The first contract that I signed was an 11-month contract.
Okay, well then maybe not, because, but could there have been anything? I know at the time Les Robinson was becoming the AD at ETSU, and that would mean that ETSU would become a national basketball power very shortly, but, basketball coach becomes the AD. Somebody going to fully support me here? Was that any motivation to go to Wofford?
Not really.
Okay. Did Wofford at the time say, we're thinking about going to Division I, going to? That was. How did that come about?
Well, that's a long story in itself.
Sure.
And we felt would be an advantage as far as visibility, an advantage as far as having the NCAA rules and regulations and all that. And so we went that direction. We started getting the program to where it needed to be. We went to the national playoffs, and at that same time, Marshall had decided that they were going to leave the Southern Conference and they were going to go into the Mid-American Conference.
Mm-hmm.
So there was a slot for another team. And Dr. Lassane, Danny Morrison, myself, and Richard Johnson, we met and talked, and Dr. Lassane talked with the Board of Trustees, and he was convinced that if we did it the right way, got some more in the Southern Conference, and hopefully work towards winning a championship. Without us, how could we expect to compete at the level that Marshall did in the Southern Conference? There were statements that we would never win a championship, that we would be the whipping boy, yada, yada, and all that negative stuff.
But you had had old George Michael sports machine with your quarterback who was missing a pectoral muscle, and they did a huge feature on that. And I remember he used to be the coach at ETSU right there. I can recall that. Why was there? I mean, it would seem like Division II success would lead into success at the then Division I AA level. And heck, you got a training camp facilities coming about because of Jerry Robertson. Why was you think there's skepticism?
And all that, we're way behind. And it was, I guess, the sentiment was that how do you expect to win if you haven't won a CS level? At that time, it was called.
This was when the Bucks were struggling after you departed, but it was obvious at that point that there was you were developing a winner at Wofford. Mike Ayers, what do you remember about that 1990 game? I don't mean to interrupt, but I just wanted to, it seemed like we were coming to that. What do you remember about that 1990 Wofford victory against ETSU?
Well, it was always going to be a hard-fought game. We were a team that we were solid.
Mm-hmm.
Our kids had played Western, had played Furman, had played the Citadel, and we go in there and we execute and we make some plays, and the next thing you know, you come out with a victory. In the shootout game, it was 64 to 40 something, I think.
64-46, I think, yeah.
Yeah, that was one of those games where Sean Graves got hurt. Our number 2 guy comes in, and it's like, oh my gosh, what are we going to do now? And we were smart enough to do what our number 2 could do best, and the defense that night played well. There was more scoring going on than a little bit, but any time that the Buccaneers have played Wofford, it's been for the most part pretty competitive.
Terriers have won 7 in a row, and I mean, 2 years ago it looked like the Bucs had turned things around. They were 2-0. Didn't even let them across midfield there, Coach. I mean, that was really the stab in the back, and that put the derailed ETSU to a large extent. And I think in part because of such a dominating victory in the early season here. Hey, I did want to go, I've always wanted to ask you this. When you were at ETSU, you recruited a lot of players from Moeller High School in Cincinnati. And if people don't know, Moeller High School back in the 70s, when Jerry Faust was the coach there, that was the program in the country. And in fact, that's how Jerry Faust, because I think he may have lost like 3 games all of the 70s. I checked those stats, but he did not lose much. And that's, success there is how he became the coach at Notre Dame and later at Akron and all this. But by the time you got to ETSU and recruiting those players from Moeller, Faust was gone, tarnished a little bit there. What was the pipeline that you established with Moeller?
Well, Ohio.
Georgetown, Kentucky, I know you went.
Moeller was a school that at that time was at the top of the rung for the most part. And the end of it was their academics. And we were able to recruit some outstanding academic kids. And we were always looking for the best academic, athletic guy that we could get because he
remember about recruiting Billy Taylor?
Billy, he's one of my guys. I was fortunate enough to have him as a member of my staff, and he is a guy that loves ETSU. He loves his experience at ETSU. He's a very determined State. He made a humongous play in that game, and you see a guy as a young man, and then you see him grow. Was to him, and you knew that he also made. He is doing a whale of a job wherever he's been from a defensive standpoint, and I'm sure someday he's going to be a head coach as well.
They've got the Rail Trophy for head coach as well. I was thinking about that as well earlier today. I got to tell you that, Mike Ayers. They got the Rail Trophy for ETSU in Chattanooga. What about the Mike Ayers Trophy for ETSU and Wofford in the future? Of course, ETSU, they've got to be able to start winning this ballgame. Wofford has always been the thorn in ETSU's side, really even since they hired you, Mike Ayers, I think. Thank you for joining us here. This is Turning Point for ETSU, or will it be, again, Wofford established